Okay, so we are now 10 seconds in. I'm going to be trying a slightly new configuration on how my camera is set up. As you can see, it is now attached, well, sort of. It's loose on my shoulder, but it's set in a way that it shouldn't slide. We'll see how this does. If it works, great. Excellent, I found another way to do this. If it doesn't, or my shirt gets in the way too much, I'll have to figure out something else out. But we're continuing the blanket squares for my friend whose spouse has found out that they have been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. This is going to be a Terry Prachett themed blanket, as it is for my knitting and crochet guild, which is a Terry Prachett themed knitting and crochet guild. So we'll just have to continue. This is the 2-flower themed square that we are still working on, because it's 2-flower is one of the people that I've chosen, the other being the Grim Squeaker. We are making progress. We're about halfway through the square. So let's go ahead and swap to the camera and get started. Now this is entirely, for right now, single stitch crochet, and so it should be pretty simple and easy to follow what I'm doing, and I should be able to talk freely as I'm working on it. We're just doing simple single stitches, 40 across, and then going up and down as we are. Let's see. I am back home from house sitting. I'm certain you can see the familiar wall right behind me. I'm back on my nice comfy couch. Of course, my friends that I was pet sitting for did everything they could to make it as comfortable as possible for me, but it just, sitting in someone else's office chair, and at someone else's desk, was just not comfortable for me. I don't use a external keyboard or mouse. I just use the ones on the laptop, and so that made it much more difficult, because I was having to stare down at the laptop as opposed to how it's set up here, where the laptop is roughly at chest height for me instead of being closer to waist height. So apparently I have a longer torso than the friend who I was using their computer chair. So yeah, it was an interesting experience. I'm glad to be back home and have my own setup that does not require me to stare down constantly, because my neck is killing me. That said, I was getting in a lot of walking while I was there, because I was by a very nice park, and I was getting regularly 1.5 to 2 miles per night while I was staying there. I'd like to keep that distance up. I'm just going to have to find new walking paths to achieve it here where I am. Let's see. Over the course of the week, I did have to come home and install a air conditioner in my kids' room, because theirs gave out in the middle of the heat wave that we have just experienced. It finally broke today. So that was fun. No, not really. Also, I discovered that my partner had not been turning on the plant lights the way that they were supposed to, so now my African violet and my begonia are both very leggy. We'll have to just see how much care it takes to fix that. I also think that somebody might have been overwatering my Christmas cactus, because several of the strands just completely fell over when I checked them today. Sorry about that. So I believe I can salvage it, but I think some of the strands might be a loss. I'm going to see if I can propagate some of them, because my friend that I was house sitting for has asked if, if I can propagate any of my succulents, that they can have some, which great, fine, I'm happy to do so. But yeah, there's going to have to be some work done to see what of my plants I can keep alive and what I'm just going to have to toss the deceased bits. So we'll see what happens. First I have to try and figure out how to root cactus from the propagation. So, because I've got cuttings that I'd lain out to dry while I was gone, and they are all dry and ready, have the nice scab formed on them. So then now I need to set up a tray with cactus soil and try to get them a good solid spot to grow and take root and develop into actual happy cacti. I'm pretty sure I have some spare pots that I can use for that, so no problem there, but it's just seeing what they'll do and if they'll do it, because gotta admit, never propagated anything before. I've grown one thing from seed and then it died as a seedling, so and I've never grown anything from a cutting or a clip. My mother can and has. She has more than once managed to acquire a clipping or a cutting of a plant and do things, and suddenly she has a whole new plant. And it just boggles for me that that's a possibility that can be done. You can't do that with an animal. I mean, you can't just take, oh, here's a little bit of a cow's tail. Look, I've got a new cow now. And that's what I'm far more used to doing, is working with animals. So you do, however, if you leave a male and a female of certain species alone together, will end up with new animals, which, is a huge reason why we need to be certain that cats and dogs get spayed, because there is a massive overpopulation that then become strays and become viewed as nuisance animals, and they live very hard lives outside. They get hit by cars, poisoned by people, attacked by other cats and dogs. It's just a really rough life for a stray. This is why I'm a huge proponent. Keep your animals inside, get them spayed and neutered, etc., etc. Take proper care of your animals. Okay, so for this, hold on just a second. You guys get to see part of the Twitch stream on the Twitch Studio player thingy. Okay. Next row. So I think in total, since we did 40 stitches to get 8 inches, I think we're going to end up with 40 rows to get 8 inches of that. Because the stitches are fairly similar height and width. Okay. I am using wool of the Andes, worsted weight superwash wool. It's from Knit Picks, but I got it from, I think, We Heart Crochet was the name of the website, or We Love Crochet. And then I'm using a 4.5 millimeter crochet hook to work on this. So the colorway is white, just plain good old-fashioned white. If I make decent progress on this, or even better, if I finish the square today, then I will also show some specialty stitches that I will be using to make the actual flowers that will be going on the 2-flower crochet square. So we shall see. Right now I'm a little more than halfway done with this square. I didn't get as much time to work on it as I'd wanted to last week, but I got a lot of other things done while I was staying at my friends, taking care of their animals for them. So let's see. Okay, so other things from... Sorry, I keep forgetting the camera is right here, so you guys get to see my hand or wrist or whatever as I, you know, scratch my nose or adjust things. Let's see. I was planning to wear a different outfit than this. I was going to wear a wonderful shirt that was gotten for me as a birthday gift from the Cedar Forge on Threadless. Excellent clothing options there. And that particular shirt has a picture of a male Nordic fighter and says "No Nazis in Valhalla." Which I highly appreciate. I do not claim to be of Nordic heritage any more than I claim most other heritages. I am, so far as genealogy shows, a mix primarily of German, Scottish, and Irish. However, my family is also pretty much almost entirely European mutt with a little bit of Native American, but not enough of really any one thing aside from German to claim it as my official heritage. And so I don't, you know, I'm not going to say, oh, I follow the, I think they're called the Aesir, or any of that. I don't really claim them as a cultural heritage. However, I can certainly appreciate the idea of Valhalla, and I definitely agree that if such a place does exist, then Nazis would not be welcome there. Also, feel free, if you come across one, to punch a Nazi. They deserve it, and they do not deserve a platform. So, make them afraid again. Make them realize that their behavior, their views will not be tolerated. Because no matter how much people say, oh, so much for the tolerant left, if you are espousing genocide, then it is the job of the tolerant left to ensure that tolerance can exist for others, which you are not doing. Okay, so let's see, other things. The Olympics have been going on. I have not really been paying attention to them, aside from certain things that have happened. I will note that I completely support Simone Biles in her decision to step down for the sake of, sorry, there's some fur, or some fibers that are wrapped around each other and would have made a lump in the fabric if I had allowed them to stay as they were. Okay, there we go. I do support Simone Biles in her decision that her mental health is more important than the Olympics, because we have for far too long forced athletes to push themselves to the point of breaking and then beyond, for the sake of a shiny piece of metal and some national honor. It is not fair. It has resulted in Many of these athletes continuing with lifelong injuries that will pain them for the rest of their existence. And mental health is just as important as physical health, and has been found more than once to have a bearing on your physical health. If you are suffering from ill mental health, it can affect things such as your sleep, it can affect your pain levels, it can affect how your body digests things, and just how you feel in general, which can affect things like how well you can exercise, how much energy you have to cook nutritious meals, things of that nature. So you absolutely should be taking care of your mental health as well as your physical health, because you really only get the one body, and it doesn't make sense to let any part of it be destroyed because of some shiny metal or something similar. Just like there is no reason, no, actually, I can't say there's no reason, but if you are working in a job where you are severely struggling, it is damaging your mental and physical health both, and there is hold on, it slipped again, and it is resulting in excessive trauma and pain that will cause lifelong injuries. I understand that not everyone has the privilege to just quit and change jobs, but if you find yourself in a position like that, do what you can to get yourself out of it. And if you cannot for some reason, then do what you can to protect yourself while still in it, okay? Keep in mind, especially right now, the employers need us more than we need them. Unionize if that is an option for you. Some of us, myself included, live in places where you can and will be fired for unionizing depending on your job, and you cannot prove that that is the reason why you were fired, because at least in my state, you can be fired without cause at any point. The employer does not have to provide a reason for letting you go, or they can flat out lie and you have no way to prove that that's the reason why you were let go. But if you live in a state that does not allow for such things as that actually does take workers' rights seriously, absolutely unionize. Work alongside your fellows to improve all of your stations. And if you know that another business is currently undergoing a strike, then please, please, please do what you can to avoid crossing that picket line. Right now I'm avoiding using Uber Eats or DoorDash or things of that nature, because there was and is, I believe, a strike currently going to improve the wages that are earned by the drivers, and to ensure that they get to keep the tips that are given to them by those of us who order from Uber Eats or DoorDash, things of that nature. Also, please, at the moment, try to avoid PepsiCo products, as PepsiCo is the owner of Frito-Lay, and Frito-Lay is currently experiencing a strike at least one of their plants to improve worker wages and implement actual reasonable working conditions instead of the current you must work 12-hour days mandatory, who will be let go if for any reason during those points you're taking breaks, things like that. Support your fellow workers. They are far closer to you than the billionaires that you would otherwise be supporting if you ignore those pushes for protections. Lots of people in the US like to think that they are a temporarily disadvantaged billionaire, but we are all far, far more in common with the average wage earner at McDonald's or whatever. Okay, so we have quite a bit to go. As you can see, when I fold this into a triangle, I've still got a lot of space. When we complete, when I fold this into a triangle, these two corners will touch and it will be an even triangle across the sides. I just realized because of the brightness of the... Is that a bit easier to see? To see there's a distinction there? I don't know. Hopefully. Okay, let's go back to working on it. I'm also starting to wonder if this square is larger than 8 inches. If it is, that's going to be an issue, because I do not feel like going back and undoing the entire square and redoing it, but we'll see. I should probably do a proper measure now that it's long enough to do so. Oh well. We'll get to that as needed. Okay. Okay, so this all has to be done by the end of August. It needs to be shipped, or was it the end of September? I don't remember. It needs to be shipped to my friend in Tennessee that is gathering all of the squares and seaming them together into a blanket. And I mean, these squares are coming from all over the world, because ours is very much a international knitting and crochet guild. Like, there are squares coming from New Zealand, squares coming from Ireland, squares from all across the US. At least one square, I believe, will be coming from Sweden. So I think there's going to be some from Germany and Denmark, a couple from Australia. And again, everybody has a theme based on a particular character that they have chosen. Mine, again, is Two Flower, the tourist, and the Grim Squeaker, Death of Rats. So, ooh, speaking of death, I did pick up some new fake skeletons. The at-home store has quite a few on option, and I picked up a T-Rex well, I don't think it's actually a T-Rex. It was labeled T-Rex, but the build of it is actually much closer to a Utah Raptor with the massive middle claw. But so I've got that one, and then also a dragon and a skeleton of a unicorn to join my griffin. I am planning to do some fun things with those in the future. I'm actually planning to try and make outfits for some of them, because my Death of Cats, who is also known as the Grim Sleeper, has a robe that I made for them, and I need to make one for my Death of Rats. And I'm thinking, why not go ahead and make one for some of the others, or at least, you know, little bits of outfit for them to wear. I have the vulture skeleton, which is hilarious because the wing feathers on it are skeletal, and that's not how bone works. If the bones of a bird were made of if the feathers of a bird were made of actual bone, then the bird would never be able to fly. And then I also want to, of course, make something like a hat or something for Murray, the skull that sits on my desk and I still need to paint his fake cigarette so it looks like an actual cigarette. But he's had that, you know, hanging out from between his teeth for some time. But I would like to make, like, clothing for most of my bones. Even better is if I could make, like, seasonal things, like, here's a Christmas hat, here's a scarf, here's a t-shirt for summers, you know, things of that nature. I've got a whole lot of very, very old yarn that was given to me that I would not trust to use for any actual, like, everyday day-to-day use application, because it is such old yarn, and it's from the 70s and the 60s, and it's acrylic, and so it is not going to hold up very well to day-to-day use. But being used for a decorative item such as a scarf for a, plastic skeleton, that should be absolutely fine. That is where I got the yarn that is for my Grim Sleeper's robe, and so I think I can absolutely make some cute things out of it. We'll just have to see. I have to find wherever that yarn went to. I really need to, at some point, reorganize my yarn, get it all into set areas. Right now, some of it is right next to my desk, some of it is downstairs, some of it is in the garage, which I'm not thrilled by. Even though it's in a Rubbermaid bin, it could still get damaged by the heat, and it could get bugs in it, things like that. Some of it is in a massive, well, not massive, for a chest freezer it's fairly small, but in a chest freezer that stopped working and was just a big empty thing sitting there, and I went, well, heck, I can put my yarn in here. There we go. So that's yet another place it's stored. I also need to find a way to get my light box set up so I can get proper photos taken of some of my crocheted items. I am looking for a different place to sell as opposed to Etsy, because Etsy is making some business decisions that I prefer not to support. Businesses on Etsy now will be given a star review, which means if they consistently hit 5-star reviews, if they produce X amount per quarter, etc., so many sales every month, they will get priority and be pushed to the forefront of the advertising on Etsy. The problem is that if it is a small or new shop, then this is definitely going to be harm them. It is really only going to help larger stores that have been there for much longer, and it also means that any single review of 4 stars or less, so anything but a complete 5-star review, is actually going to hurt that business. And there are people who give low reviews because of the most ridiculous reasons. Like, I've seen people who gave a 3-star review because they didn't like the color of the packaging when the item was sent out to them. I have seen people give a 3-star or less. I saw one who gave a 1-star review because it was shipped during the issues that the post office was having, and they got mad because it took longer than the stated X number of days to arrive, which had nothing to do with the seller. It had everything to do with the damage that was being done to the post office, but the seller suffered because of the negative review. If you purchase from Etsy, unless the seller is just awful, and I do mean like awful as in you had a problem with the order, you sent them a, hey, please reach out to me about this, and their response was to reach out to you with abuse, or something similar, or they mailed you the completely incorrect item and it was broken and had clearly been broken before it was put in the package, something like that, then do not leave anything less than 5-star reviews on Etsy at the moment, which pretty much wastes the whole review system, but otherwise there's no way to support the businesses you love properly. I do need to remember to go through and leave reviews on things that I have purchased through Etsy. I'm very bad about remembering to do that, but at this point right now, not leaving a review is also very harmful to the business. So do what you can to leave 5-star reviews if you're purchasing through Etsy, or else those businesses, those small companies that you are trying to support by buying through Etsy are going to be suffering for it. Like I said, I am going to be looking for a different place to sell my works as opposed to Etsy. I just haven't had the time or energy to really go looking right now. Okay. Fair warning, today's stream is probably going to be a shorter than normal one. I wish that weren't the case. However, I am still fairly worn out from the week of pet sitting. I slept better than I have. However, Saturday I accidentally left my meds at home. I had filled my pill keeper for Friday through Friday, so when it came to Saturday, my pills were empty, and I therefore did not sleep very well on Saturday. I have also been having some intestinal distress, shall we say, that is making it a bit harder to focus. So I'm probably going to end my stream early. If I do, also I still have to go to the grocery store, and I can't remember how late the particular store I need to go to is open. If I do have to end the stream before I complete this square, then what I will do is I will next week demonstrate how to make the flowers that I'm going to be doing for this. They're going to be effectively, I believe the word is applique, because you will be sewing them on. Thankfully, I can do so with minimal sewing required, but I will go ahead and be making those next week, and I'll just finish this up during the week between the streams and working and other things. I did finally complete the mask that I have been working on off and on for months, so that's done at least. Let's see, trying to think of anything else that I need to go over. I will be doing my tour stream as normal this week. We will be starting the Jedi Consular because we have now completed the Bounty Hunter. I had not even realized I was so close until I got on and went, oh, yeah, we're almost done with this. Let's see, trying to think of anything else. I don't think so. I will have the Death of Rats blanket square I will be doing soon as well. And then once I've completed both blanket squares, because these are a priority, then the next stream after that I'll be returning to the plushie that I'm making for my niece. Sorry, my nose is really itchy. I think it's working with this wool, because superwash wool, while it doesn't have the tendency for the fibers to go flying off like wool does, because the whole reason that they're superwash is regular wool doesn't have that tendency, because one of the great properties about wool is it will felt. All of the fibers will cling to one another very, very eagerly. But superwash actually removes the scales, I think. No, it coats them with a chemical that keeps them from clinging like that, which means it won't felt when you toss it in the washing machine, which is why it's superwash. It doesn't have to be hand washed. But the making it so that those fibers don't cling together means that it has a lot more likelihood for small fibers to come off, and then you start sneezing. If you can see very faintly, there's these little bits of fiber that are sticking up off the edges. And those are single individual bits of the wool from the sheep that are emerging from this square. I do eventually want to learn how to... sorry, my arm keeps giving me trouble, so I have to keep stopping to stretch it out. I do eventually want to learn how to spin and make my own yarn. But that's way down the line of things I've got to do. For the moment, I've got enough on my plate that I don't need to pick up something new. Well, I say that, and then I'm like, I just picked up beading and am making my own charms, and I'm trying to learn calligraphy, and oh, hey, I should pull out my kalimba and replay it. And oh, here's this person who says, I don't know how to read crochet patterns. Let's write one of our patterns down and give it to them so that they can see how to write patterns, or to read patterns. And just, I am very bad at sticking with just one craft. Always have been. And I still need to sew yet another mask. A very particular one this time. See, I've made 2 masks for me, and I've made 2 masks each for my kids since the pandemic started. I have not made any masks for my partner, because they've got other masks that they wear, but I kind of want to finish one, because I've already got the fabric cut. I just need to sew it together. And if I could do that, then I could give it to them for their birthday at the start of next month. That said, the last mask took me literal months to do because I did not get any good stretches to just sit and sew like I used to when I was working night shift. The switch from night shift to day shift has been a huge loss in my crafting productivity, because on night shift I could, just sit there and sew or crochet or whatever in between calls. Right now, not only is the call volume higher because it's day shift instead of night, but also they had to let go quite a few agents who were not performing up to standard, what with being at home and not having someone watching over their shoulder to make certain they weren't, queue hopping or doing call avoidance, things like that. Plus, several people have either left for other opportunities, or they had, one of my best friends, in fact, left for another opportunity, or various other things, and therefore, it means that the call volume is higher because we have less agents to take the calls, and the evening shift in particular, which is what I work, is especially high because that's when they are sending it to the overseas desk. But the problem is the overseas desk, they have a lot of agents who are not trained quite as well and make a lot of mistakes. I had a meeting this past week with one of the team leads. It was supposed to be a team group meeting, but I'm the only one who wasn't on a call at the time of it, and so he and I had a very frank discussion of some of what's been going on and why the call volume, which I was promised would be lower in the evenings, has been higher instead, things like that. And yeah, one of the things we noted was the fact that since I started for this particular line group, June of last year, June of 2020, I had not received any QAs. And then, go figure, the day of that meeting, I end up that evening, just before I finish work, getting 4 QAs. All 100% scores, which is nice, but I'm hoping that the QAs become a more regular thing, because if they do, that means that, you know, that certain agents who have needed some extra help and support will have more views at their work to see, okay, here's what we really need to work on. During that frank meeting with the team lead, I actually sent him a ticket that I had struggled with because another agent had been working on it as well, and the other agent had actually gone, and after I had made changes to fix the ticket, because they'd made some really weird decisions in their documentation, but after I'd made the changes to fix that documentation to what it should have been, the other agent had been still working on the ticket and kept going back and undoing my changes back to things that had nothing to do with the ticket. Like, if a caller calls you and says that the issue is their monitors won't show up, their dual monitors won't be displayed, then you list it as hardware monitor as the issue. You don't list it as some program that they're not trying to use and has nothing to do with the problem. And if somebody else goes through and fixes it to what it should be, you certainly shouldn't be going back and undoing what they've fixed. My team lead actually said he was going to keep that ticket number and work on it as a coaching experience for that particular agent, which I don't want to get people in trouble, but poor ticket documentation makes the job for everybody else so much harder. If you can't figure out what's actually been done or what needs to be done, then it means that you and the caller have to go over the same information all over again before you can even try to fix what's wrong. So, pet peeve of mine, I suppose. Alright. So, we've been at this almost 45 minutes. I'd really wanted to make it at least an hour. I mean, I really prefer to do 2-hour streams as opposed to 1 or less. But, again, I do have to go to that grocery store tonight. We're now roughly... a sec. Oh look, I made a hat. No. We're roughly 3/4 of the way done. We've still got a little bit to go. But I think for tonight, I'm calling it. I'll just do the rest of the work on my own later. I'm sure I can find some time somewhere, especially now that I'm not trying to sew on a mask. I am going to end the stream here for tonight. I do want to thank anyone who came out to join me. I hope that everyone has a beautiful rest of your week. Remember that the best thing you can do is support other people and support yourself. Take care of yourself. Make certain that if you have the opportunity to help others, you do so. Honestly, I know that people don't often think of it this way, but caring for others is a form of self-care. You just have to make sure you actually do practice self-care along with it. So, I do want to thank everyone again for coming out today. I hope you all have a beautiful rest of your week, and I'll see you again Thursday night. Thank you. Bye.